When it comes to making sure that your mission-critical business intelligence content is always up and running, there's typically 4 different approaches that you can take, depending on how critically you value uptime. Let's take a non-technical look at these approaches that can be used and evaluate what makes sense for you. I'm Jeff, and this is Off the Charts with Jeff. So why is this topic important? Well, everybody's use of business intelligence tools is going to be different. If you're using BI to provide monthly updates to a team of 10 people, it's probably not critical to you if there's a bit of downtime in the BI system. You would have a server that hosts the BI, and if there's a hardware failure, it might take IT a few days to restore your backups, but to you this might be acceptable. But what if you manage a team of thousands, and they use dashboards to make decisions all day long? I'd wager that a 3-day downtime is really unacceptable in a scenario like that. And what if you allow access to your dashboards as part of a product that you offer to your customers? A 1-hour downtime incident may be completely unacceptable because this is a revenue source for you. This is where the term high availability typically comes into play. It's a characteristic of a server that's set up to ensure both a high level of uptime and performance. Here's some typical setups that people use. The first is called active-active. In this environment, you would typically have 2 or more servers working as one. Now here's the flow. Let's say that you click on a link to launch your favorite dashboard tool. A tool called a load balancer is going to take your request and go, well, I'll send you to server A or server B. You don't know what's happening. All you see is a dashboard being loaded, but you could be directed to either one of these. In the case of a hardware failure, the load balancer simply starts directing you all to the server that's not down. So you don't even know there's a problem, while IT in the background can get this fixed. This is a great solution for maintaining uptime, but it comes with a larger cost both in software and hardware. Now the next is called active-passive. Similar to our active-active setup, you have 2 servers or more, and one of them is going to act as a primary. All requests that you make are going to be routed to the primary server. But if something happens to the primary server, that's when the passive one gets used. So the passive one is sitting there on standby. It's very similar to the active-active that we just talked about. The details really come down to the software providers that you're using. If uptime is important, but you also need to balance cost, this can be a good option because having a passive server can oftentimes be less expensive from a software point of view. Now the next option is something that I like to call active backup. Essentially, you're running a server that's primary, and should something happen to that server, you have a backup server that's around. If a hardware problem does occur, it will take IT a little while to set up the standby system, reload the software, and get it up and running. It can be less expensive for sure, but it can certainly result in a lot more downtime, depending on what you're willing to accept. Now the last option. This is something that I describe as YOLO. You only live once. This is a great option if you're really looking for both adventure and excitement. To be fair, most people in a YOLO setup have a software backup, but they probably don't have the hardware standing by. And if there is a case of a disaster, it's definitely going to take some time to get everything set up. There's also typically a risk of data loss if this is your mentality. Now, you know you're probably thinking that I'm saying this completely in the sense of satire. I'm not. You'd be surprised how often we see this. Now, of course, the benefit is it's cheap. If uptime is not the most critical thing in the world, and you might have to rebuild some content if something goes wrong and you're okay with that, it's an option. As you can see, there's several options available, and it all comes down to cost versus the acceptable downtime that you're willing to have. Also, if you're looking into cloud, definitely do your diligence. Ask what kind of failover options are available, as most cloud providers do have disaster recovery built in, but nothing in life is free. So you should certainly be asking questions depending on who you're going with. Now, if you're interested in topics around architecture and best practices like this, take a look at a video we did entitled Best Practices for Development Architecture in Business Intelligence. This video covers how you should set up an environment to split development into multiple locations to prevent development errors from seeping into production. It's well worth a watch. Hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching.